Today, we're going to be diving deeper into the analysis of evolution. But first, as always, I want you to go in and sign in for daily attendance, and you should have already reviewed this PowerPoint that's been posted before doing this Edpuzzle. An important part of evolution is survival of the fittest. So what is fitness? Fitness is how well an organism can survive and reproduce in a given environment. So simply put, organisms who are the most fit will survive as a species. And this doesn't mean fit like as in lifting weights or running on the treadmill in a gym. These are positive adaptations, traits that lead to organisms surviving and passing on those genes to offspring. Organisms need to be fit for their environments to survive. Let's stop at our first question. The ability of an organism to survive and reproduce in a specific environment relates to its diversity, evolution, adaptation, or fitness. The correct answer is fitness. Organisms who are most fit will survive. Survival of the fittest. In evolution, it's important to realize that all species living and extinct being animals, plants that don't exist in nature anymore, they've completely died out, but they all are descended from common ancient ancestors. We look at our chart right here. We'll go further into detail with these charts tomorrow or next lesson. But we see we have breakage points where different species break off from a common ancestor. For example, this is a common ancestor of A, B, and C, while we have another breakage, so this one right here is the common ancestor of B and C. Remember, we talked about Darwin in his South American journeys. Well, he was an important part in the evolution theory, of course, the founder of modern evolution theory. And in his tree of life, he had all organisms being linked, way back, coming from one source. Now, we talked about natural selection and survival of the fittest, but there's also something known as artificial selection. Darwin, again, he studied changes to organisms caused by plant and animal breeders. Nature naturally produces variations, but humans, throughout history, we've chosen desirable and useful traits in animals and plants and used them to our advantage. An example would be the dog. Humans, I guess you could say, created domesticated dogs. They made them domesticated so we could bring them into the home. They started out as just wolves, and traits were selected for, and these animals were crossed, and eventually these wolves evolved. They were domesticated into dogs. So when then we brought these creatures into our home, they became man's or women's best friend. Let's go to question 2. What is an example of artificial selection? Choice 1, letting dogs choose their own mate. Choice 2, letting plants pollinate on their own. Or choice 3, crossing a Labrador and a poodle to create a Labradoodle. The correct answer is crossing a Labrador and a poodle to create a Labradoodle. That's artificial. Humans are crossing the Labrador and the poodle, and they are trying to select for traits they like to make a different breed of dog, the Labradoodle. And if we want to eliminate these other choices, letting dogs choose their own mate, well, that's not artificial. That's natural, because humans don't have a hand in that. And the same thing with plants. Letting plants pollinate on their own, that's natural. Humans don't have a hand in that. Let's talk about Earth's history in studying evolution. We talked about fossils a little bit when we talked about variation across fossils. But fossils, we know, are the preserved remains or traces of ancient species. These fossils are taken together as a picture of the ancient world, and this is known as the fossil record. The fossil record shows that species have evolved, survived, and many have become extinct. Right? We see fossils of creatures that don't exist anymore. They have become extinct. They have died out. We can use fossils in different layers of Earth to compare life at different points in years in history throughout different places. Like I said, you'll see many extinct organisms, and you'll see many commonalities and differences across the continents. And we'll end with our last question. Which statement best is supported by fossil records? A. Many organisms that lived in the past are now extinct. B. Species occupying the same habitat have identical environmental needs. C. The struggle for existence between organisms results in changes in populations. Or D. Structures such as leg bones and wing bones can originate from the same type of tissue found in embryos. The correct answer is A. Many organisms that lived in the past are now extinct. Right? In our fossil record, we see species, animals, some have evolved, survived, but many have become extinct. In analyzing this question, let's see if we can eliminate some of the other choices. That's a big thing with Regents questions, and this is a Regents question. So we look at B, species occupying the same habitat have identical environmental needs. But species occupying the same habitat, that implies they're alive. And fossils are the remnants of dead creatures, so we eliminate B. What about C? The struggle for existence between organisms results in changes in populations. Again, struggle for existence, that kind of leads us to think about living animals. Living organisms, and changes in populations, a population or a group that's living. And we know fossils are not living. We get rid of C. And then D. Structures such as leg bones and wing bones can originate from the same type of tissue found in embryos. And yes, while that might be true, we've talked about that before, it doesn't apply to fossils. In Regents questions, we're often looking for the best answer. In fossils, the best answer for fossils is that they show many organisms that lived in the past but are now extinct. And that's the end of our lesson. And I will just leave you here with this picture. It really has no bearing in evolution, but it's sort of comical and relates to what we're going through now. Thank you.